Hey folks, welcome back to another review with yours truly, Sam Healey. Today we're taking a look at this little fella right here, Private Die. This is a game that is designed by Austin Bennett, Jacob Chaney, and Sam Schirmer. It's put out by Mystic Ape Games. And this is basically a private detective game, a little noir-esque thing going on here. And we're trying to crack the case that has been given to us. And we do that by rolling dice. And clues are awarded for people who are rolling the dice better than others, and so forth and so on. Let's get down to the table. I'll show you how it works, and then we'll come back in just a few moments. So here I have set up for you a 6-player game of Private Die. Now, Private Die, what you are trying to do is each person is playing a private eye who is trying to crack a case that has been given to them. And they're going to do so by interviewing a bunch of different witnesses. As you can see here, these witnesses all are different people that they're going to be questioning. And they have a special ability down here at the bottom that they're going to enact upon those times of questioning. Each of the different detectives have a special ability that they will be able to use at different times. It just depends upon what the special ability says. The person who either gets 15 clues first wins, or if this witness deck runs out and there are no more witnesses, whoever has the most clues at the end of that's another way the game can end, and whoever has the most clues at that point wins. So the first person will take a witness card and turn it face up. This one is Sierra Topian, and this person is hot-headed. Their special ability says, after concluding questioning, each detective must discard the die with the lowest positive value. This may prevent busting. Well, what we do first, though, is we take the 10-sided die and we roll it, and we add its value to the printed value that's on the card. So 6 plus 4 is 10. So 10 is the number to successfully question this witness. All right, so as we begin here, Kirk Damon is going to be the first person, and he says once per round you can roll an additional die without spending a clue. All right, so that's interesting because you can choose how many dice you want to roll, and then if you want to, you can add dice to it if you still have some wiggle room to get underneath this number for the questioning. So he's going to go ahead and start with just 2 dice, and he's going to roll them. So he's got 5 here. So he's going to use his special ability and roll an extra one. And there we go. So that is 10, which is the number of the witness. That's really good. He hit it straight on, which is what he wanted to do. But now we have to get rid of the lowest die, so we have to get rid of this 2 away from here. So now he just has an 8. We go over to Harvey Jones. Before you begin questioning, set a die to either 1 or 6. That die counts toward normal questioning. So we're going to do that and set 1 die to a 6. And then we're just going to re-roll. We're going to roll 1 more. Well, yeah, we're going to roll 2 more. That might not be a good idea, but hopefully it will be okay. All right, that's not bad. That's actually pretty good. So he rolled a 3 and a 1. That is actually a 10, but because this witness here is hot-headed, we have to get rid of the lowest one. So he's left with a 9, which is winning right now. Over here, Timothy Holmes says at the beginning of the game, you gain an unused questioning die. You may roll this die without spending a clue, and it always counts as negative. When this die is used, wins grant 1 less clue. All right, so one of my unused dice can always be used as a negative. That's what Timothy Holmes does. So we're going to go ahead and roll 3 dice and see what we get here. Ooh, that's not cool. All right, so we rolled 3. The lowest one goes away, and that leaves me with 11, which is a bust, which isn't necessarily very bad because I don't have any clues to lose yet. So we're going to go ahead and just leave it be. And bust, it's bad, but we don't get any bad things away from it. Gene Caller over here says you may force a roll off if you come within 2 of the round's winner without busting. You win ties in all roll-offs. Okay, so what that means here is that if you have two people who are the highest and without going over the number, and they're tied, they're going to take the dice that they rolled for questioning and re-roll them, and whoever has the highest result from that second roll is the actual winner. Well, they have to be equal, though. She can force that roll off if she is within 2 of the leader. So that's a pretty cool thing right there. So she's going to roll her 3 dice and see what happens here. I have a 5, a 2, and a 1. So she gets rid of that 1 because of the witness card, and so she has 7 left, and that is possibly within 2 of the winner right now, so we'll see what happens. Over here, Andy Noliker says, when you bust, roll a die. If the result is even, gain 1 clue instead of losing clues. If it's odd, do not lose any clues. So that's a pretty cool ability to have. He's going to go ahead and roll 3 dice as well and see what happens. So we have 4, 5, and 1. All right, so the 1 goes away because of this, and that leaves him with 9, which is pretty good, tied for first. And Gene Kohler is also going to be rolling as well. So he is ready to go. And then finally, Kevin Bennett over here says, at the beginning of the game, remove 1 of your dice to the game box. Once per round, you may re-roll 1 of your remaining dice. So Kevin over here is going to lose 1 die permanently for the rest of the game. He's only going to have 4 to work with, but he can re-roll 1 of the dice that he used once every single turn. So that's a pretty good trade-off. We're going to go ahead and use 3 of the 4 dice and see what happens. All right, so we have 1. Oh, that's so the 1 goes away, and he's going to re-roll the 2, which doesn't do any good at all. But at least he didn't bust. Now that everybody has rolled their questioning dice, we determine who is the winner. So we're going to take the person who is closest to 10 without going over. So we have 8, 9, 11. This is bust. So they would actually lose 2 clues right now if they had them. But since they don't, nothing bad happens. Jean over here is at 7, which is within 2 of 9, so she's going to probably force a reroll. And then Andy over here also has a 9, and then Kevin is a 5, doesn't have anything to do. So what would happen at this point is that these 3 players would reroll their dice, and whoever has the highest total would be the winner. So Harvey over here is definitely out. He just won a 2. He just rolled a 2, but we have 2 7s, so another roll-off is happening. So we have 9 and 4. So Gene Kohler actually did win this round. When you win, you're going to take a number of clues equal to the number of dice that you won. If you got it right on the money, if you rolled a 10, you would get an extra clue. So right now, Jean is simply going to take 2 clues and add them to her pool. And now these are clues that she can use to re-roll, or they are points at the end of the game as well. And so she becomes the first player. She flips over another witness. This one is Geraldine Papillion. Femme Fatale. All detectives' abilities are negated this round, so it's just straight up die rolls. And the 10-sided die is rolled, so it is a 4, 9 plus 4, so that is 13. All right, and so that's how the game would continue, with flipping cards over here, rolling this die to add to this number, everybody doing their questioning dice. If one person gets up to 15, they have won. If more than one person by the end of a round gets 15 or more, whoever has the most is the winner. And if they tie at the end of the round, then they actually do a final roll-off. But the other way the game can end is by this deck running out completely. If that is the case, whoever has the most clues at the end of that is the winner. So that's about it for Private Die. I do want to mention that they do have these little case cards that kind of add some variability and replayability to the game, the way I showed you is actually not even the most basic way to play. You could actually even take the detectives out and just do what they call the bare bones variant, where you're just rolling dice. You have no special abilities in and of yourself. You just go by the special rules that each witness brings along to the game. So you could do that as well. This is another step in the complexity avenue of things, because it does add another layer of things you have to keep track of. For example, this one says Betrayal at Night. Set up, you randomly distribute this card. The player that receives this card is the inside man and starts the game with 10 clues. The inside man does not receive a detective card, but instead may take all clue rewards from any other detectives. The inside man only wins if the case goes cold. All other detectives win if the case is solved. So this is like a one versus all variant that you can play with the game. Spell of the Songstress. The winner of each round is put under the spell of the Songstress and gains this card. The detective's ability is negated while in possession of this card, and when this card is moved to another detective, the ability is regained. So that's pretty interesting as well. As far as some pros and cons are concerned, my first pro is that this has a very low barrier of entry. This is a gateway game if I ever saw one, because you are simply just rolling dice with a few rules added here and there, and you're just trying not to get over a certain number. Now that number will change and fluctuate based upon who the witness is that you're questioning and what result was rolled on the 10-sided die, but you're just rolling dice and you're trying simply not to get over a certain number. And that's really, really easy to teach. It's not difficult at all. On top of that, the second pro that I have here is that there is some expandability to the game that comes in the game. These cases, they're not, you know, the be-all, end-all of expandability, but it does provide within the base game some different ways that you can play the game. And I like it when games do that, no matter how big or small they are. Another pro of the game is that you can have your own special ability. I like having a game where I can do something that nobody else can do. And I don't think that any of these are way more powerful than the others. The ones that I have played with probably the most is the one that I can take a die and add it, make it a 6 or a 1. That is very, very helpful, but being able to reroll dice is also helpful. Being able to add a die without having to pay a clue for it, that's very helpful as well. So I don't think that one is much, much, much more powerful than the other. They're all very useful, just in different ways. And I like it when games do that, give me a special ability that makes me feel different than everybody else, but doesn't overshadow the game. Now, as far as cons for the game are concerned, I'm not a big fan of black and white. I'm just not a big fan of games that have this noir look to them. I want some color, even if it's kind of muted. Color is always better than just the gray tone, or the what do they call that? The grayscale motif. And I just don't like the look of the game, and I think that's a detractor. Some people love this kind of stuff, and I understand that completely. So this is very much my own opinion as far as that's concerned. But the different texts and fonts that they use, some of the text on the cards are pretty small to read, so even at just arm's length, so that's kind of a con as well. And finally, the last real con here is that it might play a little bit longer than it probably should and overstay its welcome just slightly. When you're rolling dice and going through all these different probabilities in your head, sometimes some people take just longer than they probably should, and they take the game a little bit too seriously at that point. But again, it's not really a huge thing. That's just one of the ways that you play the game, and if you have that kind of knowledge, why not use it in the game, right? So it's not that big of a deal, but it might overstay its welcome just slightly. But I mean, again, that really depends upon, it's not really a flaw of the game. It's more of the people playing the game, kind of. So it's a low-end con. All in all, I'm going to give this actually a pretty high mark, because I do like dice rolling games, and this is one that's pretty fun, and it moves along at a moderate clip. Your turn doesn't take too long, but the higher number of people that you have in the game, the longer the game's going to take. So there is that as well. But I'm going to give this one probably a 6 out of 10. I think it is a better than average gateway dice rolling type game. It's not King of Tokyo or anything like that, don't get me wrong, but it is decent, and I think it's better than average, so that's why I'm giving it a 6 out of 10. That's it from me for Private Die. We'll see you guys on the flip side.